So first of all, whose beautiful purple pens are these? Anyone know? These are really nice. They say Yuba City on them, and if you give the right answers, maybe I won't toss them to you, but maybe we'll get them at the end of the event. So good morning. Who said good morning to me back? Daryl, thank you for saying good morning back to me. I can't stand when people do that, when they say you need to say good morning, but in any event, good morning. Thank you. See, the little peer pressure works, Eric, doesn't it? And then I get to say you all say good morning to me. So flying the mission, thank you for coming today. Hopefully you're here on your own volition. And the topic of today is telling our story. So there were 3 priorities that were identified in the last, say 6 months, as things that are really important to our city, but maybe we don't have a concerted effort. Each one of you in your roles in the city have a concerted effort that you put toward every day, whether that be maintaining our parks, making sure they're beautiful, the grounds, keeping our community safe, water, wastewater, all these different things. You put a concerted effort toward that. But sometimes we have things that are more abstract, more just kind of floating out there, that we don't really have that concerted effort. So we talked about, as an executive team, how do we get our hands around 3 different areas? And the first is homeless. So we have a group of folks who get together, and a lot of the people in this room are a part of that. Actually, a lot of you are in it on a daily basis with the homeless. You're the boots on the ground, making it happen. And we decided that we can't just be reactive. We can't rely upon the interfaces that come through public works, through police, through fire with our homeless. We need to take a more engaged role in that. So we've done that. The second is housing. And when I say housing, it's stimulating housing growth in our community. We've had a tremendous amount of commercial growth, which interestingly is really the fruits of our revenue as a city. So when we're looking at more money coming in to be able to fund things in our community, to add value back to the public, a lot of it comes from commercial growth. But we need housing to complement that. And so there's been a group of folks that have been putting effort toward a housing plan, how to encourage people to come to Yuba City to build more housing. Because we've had about 50 homes a year, which really, on historic levels, isn't as much as we could or should be doing. The third is telling our story, which probably is the most abstract of all. It's the one that you get kind of, what is telling our story? What do you mean by that? And so that's what we're here to talk about today. When I think of telling our story, I immediately think, let's go through the slides that we have. Oh, of course, I can't. Terrell, thank you for putting this in here. I can't stop on that, otherwise we'll catch me in an hour and we'll still be on that. Engaging our community in understanding how we add value to their lives. A working definition arguably can be different. We can sit here and tweak it and change it. And I sat down, this is what came out of the mind. And I think that we have to have a common language when we talk about things. So we've developed a common language about quality service, innovation, leadership. It's really the thread of our mission that runs through all of our jobs. Any given job that we have here in the city, we can focus on quality service. In other words, how to exceed customer expectations. We can focus on innovation, how to create an environment to spark new ideas. And we can talk about leadership, which is just individual initiative, is taking responsibility for action. And that's under the context that everyone's a leader, right? Because everyone can take a responsibility to take action in what they do every day. So we have done a really good job of internally telling our story, I believe. I believe we've done a good job of creating connections among each other, telling our story and talking about how we do things. We've done this through leadership academies, innovation academies, UC Davis training, winter celebrations, just get-togethers where we get to know each other at a deeper level than just work. And so the notion is we've done a very good job, I think, of creating connections amongst each other. still in the spirit of continuous improvement, there's plenty of opportunity to better that. But what about externally? And that's part of this conversation today, is how we make that connection with the community. And two words. So the first is we're going to talk about external, our connection with the community, and then transactional versus relational. Sounds really fancy words. But here's the difference between the two. Transactional, I'll just use an easy example. A transaction is when someone comes into the finance department and sees the folks up front and gives them the bill. They say the bill is $42.35. They give them money, they say thank you, and they leave. Relational is how we develop a relationship with the customer. Noticing that the customer has a few small kids and saying, oh, by the way, are you interested, do you participate in our rec programs? And the person said, what rec programs? Well, if you walk over there and talk to Samantha, she can tell you about the kids and what they might do for the rec programs. No really extra effort, just conversational, but now this person understands at a deeper level that this person actually cares enough to talk to me beyond the transaction. They have a relationship, or they're forming a relationship, and they've added value to me. They've given me an insight on what I can do with my children here in the community. So that relational side of it is also what we're here to talk about today. Because any time that we, let's just say, there are certain businesses in this community that I'm loyal to. And so if you're in mind, you can think right now of a business that you frequent. Whatever business it is. I'll just give you an example for myself. Bi-County Pools. I don't have any person who works at Bi-County Pools. Just over the years, we've always gone to Bi-County Pools, and they've always just been really nice people there. And so it's more than a transaction for me. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm still going to, you still want to get good pricing on what you buy. But it's developed into a relationship. And so that becomes a bond that I have with Bi-County Pools. And I can think of other places where I have a loyalty to go to. And that is the bond of relationships rather than just a pure transaction. And so that's also what we're here to talk about, is the relational side of things. Any questions so far?
No.
All right, thanks. So I just wrote a quote to start things, and it's related. I think it's someone attributes it to Maya Angelou, but I'd say it's probably a quote that goes back forever in time. It's not what you say, it's not what you do, it's how you make them feel. So obviously for me with Bi-County Pools, it's not what they've said to me, it's not what they've done for me, it's how they've made me feel. And just yesterday, as I walked in there and got chlorine for the winter months, the lady behind the counter said, "My, your kids have grown. I remember when they were this tall, and they'd come in here." And I said, "Yeah, they have grown a lot." Simple comment. And it was enough and it was real, right? It wasn't just her. She's just a real person who's probably looking for that community bond as well. I'll give you another example. In my neighborhood, over the summer, early summer, maybe actually it was spring, I heard, I guess the word's bleating, bleat, like a goat makes a bleating sound, B-L-E-A-T-I-N-G. And I live in, for those of you who know, I live on Sharon Drive, which is right here in town, down from Greenwood Park. You don't usually hear goats where I live. And I'm like, and I swear I'm in the backyard going, there's a goat in my neighborhood. And don't worry, code enforcement. I didn't. Where's Eric? Eric's in the back there. I'm looking at Daryl, and I'm looking at Mike, and I'm looking. So here's the relationship side for me. The first thing is like, what the heck's a goat doing in my neighborhood? And I asked my wife. I said, Marie, I swear there's a goat in our neighborhood. And she said, oh yeah, Chris down the street. He came by and let me know that his daughter's raising a goat for the fair. She's involved in 4-H. And so just to let us, he just said, let me know if there's a problem with the noise at all. They moved in from Sutter years ago, clearly still accustomed to an environment within which you have goats. And so every time I heard that goat, it didn't bother me. It was kind of that I had that relationship with the neighbor where I realized, oh, their daughter is doing that for 4-H. She's going to sell the goat. It's going to be a good experience for her. That's part of her growth. And absent that, I have to tell you that it probably, with time, would have irritated me a little bit. To like, what's that goat doing in my neighborhood? I'm tired of hearing that goat. And so there are times in our role as a city where we have we take a regulatory role. Very much so, right? Because we live in a society of rules. We live under a rule of law. And so there are certain things you can and can't do. So when we have that time where we have to tell people, going back, to Eric's example, he's out there trying his best to form relationships. The police department's trying to form those relationships in a positive way. So when they have to do something that's less than positive, people know that they're human too. That they're not just there to be punitive, but they have a larger interest in seeing what's good is happening in our community. So this is where I stop talking and we start talking. So telling our story, the question is, what is our story? And what's fun about this is I don't come with any preconceived notions. So sorry, Brian, minimal movements, otherwise they're a distraction of the sound. So I'm going to do my best to repeat what you say so that it's captured on the video. And what do you think our story is as a city? What are we known for? What do we want to be known for? Think of a brand. I don't know what brand. I think of Bi-County Pools. You guys are going to think for some reason I have an investment in Bi-County Pools. I don't. It's just because I had that experience yesterday. I can use Mallon's Automotive as another example where I go because maybe it's Mike over at Mallon's Automotive. That happens to be Brian Hansen's brother that I didn't know until conversation one day. And I found out it was Brian Hansen's brother. So, but I think of quality service. I think of honesty. I think when something goes wrong, I know that they're going to be honest with me. When I think of Bi-County, I think of caring, that they care enough to actually notice that my kids grew, where I'm thinking, I'm just buying chlorine from you. So I guess it goes back to that. It's not what you say, it's not what you do, it's how you make them feel. How do we want that story to be about when people first think of Yuba City? There's no wrong answer, by the way. Treated fairly. Fair treatment? Megan, were you going to add something?
Well, I was just, I was thinking about our facility in general. We've had a history with animal control in Sutter County. And so we have to kind of move forward with knowing we have a history. And then we have to recognize and embrace a culture change. And it's always been really big for us in general that, we've had to kind of change people's stereotypes and views, and it has to change their experience. And we have to, make people feel like there's a future that they can be proud of.
So I'll write down positive experience. And that's, and we can change that. But that's based upon what you said in terms of the history, that people had a history that was less than positive. So we have to make sure that we swing the pendulum. So it's actually way more than positive so that they say, wow, why did I ever think it was a bad? That was change perceptions. Okay. So it's, and I didn't do this. I wanted the definition at the top of each one. So this is what. So telling our story. I'm sorry, I messed this up. What is our story? But always go back to that working definition. So we want to engage the community in understanding how we add value to their lives. Scarlett.
I have two.
You have two. You must have prepared.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I'll right now. I think one that's already kind of out there, not necessarily in these words, but you kind of hear it from people, is a city with a small town heart.
Small town heart. So what does that mean to have a small town heart?
I think that's still like that focus on being a neighbor, being having those relationships rather than just being, like you said, transactional, being that anonymous in the big city, thing. Instead, it's we're all still connected in the way that a lot of that old town, small town feeling that a lot of people have nostalgic feelings about.
It's a community.
Yeah.
Sense of community, okay.
And my other one would just be, we're listening.
We're listening. That's a really good one. I like that a lot. Which, as we know in relationships, be there those spousal relationships or parent-child relationships or management relationships, just listening without having the answer. And sometimes I know you guys who deal with the angry public, it's just listening to them. And they just get it off their chest. And they feel so good about it rather than you saying, no, you don't understand. Let me tell you why. You're wrong. It's like, you don't even have to say that. You just have to listen to them. Ajinder?
So I printed out your email and left it on the desk. And these guys were talking about it this morning over coffee. And we kind of came to the conclusion we already are out there trying to help people in their biggest hour of need, and then we just talked about how we want the people to know that, essentially so many of us live in the city, that we are family and that we care.
I'm going to write those on 2 separate lines because I really like the we care part about it. So we are family. Is that all right? Yeah. Okay. Because I think that we care, when you really know someone cares, that's meaningful. Brian.
Steve, if I could tell a real quick short story.
Please.
It pertains to that. We had a call last week, the week before, a liver cyst, and without getting into patient confidentiality issues, we'll be a little bit vague.
So what was the call for again?
A lift assist?
A lift assist.
We affectionately call them
Thank you.
racks,
Okay.
where you lift somebody up and put them back into bed.
I thought it was a technical term. So I was thinking of what a lift assist is. And so I got it now. Thank you.
I've fallen, I can't get up.
Yes.
I'm not hurt. So we go to this house, and I kind of recognize a couple of pictures on the wall and whatnot, and this is a long-time family that's lived here for a very long time. And so this gentleman was just having a tough time, and at one point it was easier just to pick him up and set him in bed. And as I was doing that, he looked up at me and said, I used to be strong like you, and I missed those days, And so there was a little bit of a connection there. And then to punctuate the story, his wife came to me afterwards, and I said, you going to need an ambulance, or do we want to help anymore with it? Anything else we can help with? And she said no. And she said, do you need his information for your report? I said, no, I'm well aware who you are. Actually, the doctor signed my birth certificate.
Oh.
And so there was a little connection there.
Yeah.
And so we're able to share those kind of stories and have that connection. Some of it is because I've been here, but some of it is that people recognize through those kind of stories that there's a connection that's a lot deeper than,
So human connection. Yeah. So that's a great story. And what's interesting about talking about this today is the presumption isn't that we're not telling our story, okay? Because we clearly are. We clearly are making those connections. It's the matter of having the conversation of what are the common threads? And how do we discover that we're all probably on the same page with our story, and that we understand what it is, and that we're able to share that with others? And that's what we're doing today. So, what else do we have before I move on? Otherwise, I know I'm going to it'll be 10 o'clock and we'll be on question 1. Samantha.
I just broke it down as simple as I could possibly. I think we all help people, so be helpful.
Helpful. So that, yeah, I like that. Robert.
Orient a safe place to walk at night.
Safe. So here's part of the story that on that same vein, is when there's a police call, there's like, I don't know how you guys do it, but I swear there are like 3 to 5 police cars, like poof, right there. And that's an impression that's created in our community, because I'll talk to other people and they go, wow, your police are so responsive here. And it goes to this, a safe place to walk at night. I feel comfortable, whether or not I should sometimes. You guys sometimes know the real deal. But it's the feeling that you have. And if you feel like it's a safe place, that's meaningful. That's what is our story.
I think a big part, an underlying factor in all this is that because of the culture of the employees in the city of Yuba City, a lot of positivity, which turns into pride. And when you have pride in what you do, it's infectious.
Mm-hmm.
It makes us through that positivity and that infectious energy, and it makes people realize that they're.
Yeah, we have pride. So every time I do a ride along, it's overly evident to me the pride that people have in their jobs. And I choose to believe that that's not directors only putting me with certain people, but whatever. It's what I witness. Katie.
I just think it's also important, if we're truly going to tell our story, is to also share some of the failures and just be humble about those.
Okay.
And let the community know that, yes, we've made mistakes, or we will make mistakes, but we're going to learn from those. So just showing some humility, and that, and along with that kind of goes empathy, like to be able to truly say to someone, yes, I know how you feel, or share something that kind of brings us down a little bit to where they can relate to us better. And I think that transparency of just our failures in the past, but the fact that we've learned from them and we're going to do better. That's part of our story, because it's part of our history.
Right. Yeah, we're human. We just display humility, admit that we make mistakes.
Just in general, honesty. So we're open and honest.
All right. Anything else before we move to question 2? Guys in the back in gray? Yeah? Yeah? No? Okay. Your time's coming, this next one. So why is it important? Let me erase this. Gather your thoughts. Okay, so why is it important to tell our story? Now come the easy questions. Perception.
You want to change any negative perceptions that may or may not be out there.
Okay, change perception.
If we don't tell it, somebody else will.
Ah, there you go. If we don't, someone else will. Brett. Oh, I'll come over just a minute. Brett.
So a lot of the interaction that we have, not we, but just the whole city has
Yeah.
with the public is transactional and it's compulsory, right? I mean, it's you pay your taxes, you follow the rules, you get your permit, whatever it is. So the story and that relational piece is kind of our value proposition to them that says this is why we do those things. This is what those dollars and those rules are for.
Right.
And I think it makes it if people can kind of believe in the city and the mission that we have, then it's easier for them to buy into those transactional interactions they have with us as well.
Yeah, so how do I send that up? Because it's very well stated. I like that. You're right. So I have to transact with the water department because I don't have a series of providers.
Right.
I have to transact, pretty much with all of you, whether it's building, water, sewer, fire, police.
For a positive transaction. It's not this confrontational, like,
Yeah.
I don't really want to give you my money. It's like, hey, we understand.
It's the same, when you go to Bi-County Pools, their value proposition is the quality of their product and the service that they render.
Yeah.
Right? And so our story is our value proposition for those compulsory transactions.
Something like create buy-in.
Yeah, engages people a little bit more.
They don't have anywhere else they can go shop.
It's tough when you have a monopoly, sincerely, because you get lazy, or you can get lazy, right? Because you got to come see me. So why do I'm having a bad day. I don't care if you're having a good day or a bad day. So value proposition for compulsory items, which is really fancy sounding, but I can't restate it another way because I really like what it says. For compulsory items, what was transactions? There you go, because transactions is that word that. So we can't avoid, when we put transactional versus relational, we can't avoid the fact that there's an underlying transaction that's occurring, but we need to put an overlay on top of it of that value proposition. Value proposition sounds fancy, but it's why you buy certain products. It's what's the value? Is it because it's certain qualities in it? And oftentimes the value proposition depends on who you are. I can go out and buy something for a certain dollar amount, and someone else would say, man, you're crazy for spending that much on that. But that's my personal value proposition. That's how it adds value to me. So part of this, too, is us, therefore, understanding our customers better in order to understand what is of value to them. Because if we're trying to sell a value proposition that they don't value, it won't work. It won't. So Millie had her hand up over here.
I was just adding on to theirs. It engages people when...
Engages people. So yeah. And then there were some other ideas that were floating around. Okay, go for it.
I put to keep a good relationship with the public, uphold our reputation as a place people want to live. I guess ultimately that would go back to growth. Word spreads fast, a small community.
Okay, so Nick, sum it up.
Probably growth.
Okay.
Positive. Yeah,
Positive experience.
The good and the bad.
That's really important. It's what Katie said as well, right? I guess it was on the previous page, showing that we're human, that we're vulnerable, that the good and the bad. So if we can, people are more accepting of the bad if they understand that there's good there too. Yeah. I guess going back to the bleating goat. It's like the bleating goat is annoying, but a little girl down the street is getting 4-H experience and is going to be able to sell it and have a experience. It's like, I'm okay with this one because I know that there's more to it. Ernie?
I guess it's just to stay connected with the community. We're not just servants, but we serve for a reason because we want to.
Just a minute. I think Diana had her hand over here.
Authenticity.
Authenticity. So in terms of telling our story, that it's important that we show authenticity, that we display it. Anything else on that?
So, being a transplant from another community,
Yeah.
right, myself, I worked here first and lived in an apartment, and then chose to move my whole family this direction because of the authenticity, the way that people are here.
Yeah.
Whether good, bad, whatever it is, we're real, right? We're compassionate with the customers. We deal with one customer at a time, no matter what you do. If you make a mistake, you own it. You're always trying to get better. The values of this community is what I wanted for my family. So when I think of other people moving here from other places, and they'll come in and want to license their dog or what have you, I recognize the reason that they moved here, because that's why I moved here.
So we tell our story because we want to, I'm just going to write, I wrote down authenticity, show people we are real, but I'm trying to put this together, but so to make people realize what a great community we are. Because I believe that everyone in this room enjoys living in Yuba City or the surrounding area and enjoys working here. And when we tell our story, we're able to have other people who maybe didn't even think about coming here. And it's not like we're trying to attract other people, but you know, if people have a positive impression of our community, all the better, right? It helps our economy, helps the vibrancy. And one of the things I admire about this community, so I've been here for 25 years, and I still feel that I'm new, but this is home for me. But one thing I always liked about Yuba City is no one is defending Yuba City. And you guys may disagree with me, and I'm okay with that if you do. But when someone says, you know, this community isn't that nice, here's what this community doesn't have, and they start talking about it, most people here are like, okay. You know, in other words, if you don't like it, you can go. You know, find that community that fits you. But for us who are here, it's a pretty good existence. We enjoy it. So that makes me, it goes back to the sense of pride. And that was probably on the previous one too. That, you know, this is who we are. We're real. Take us for who we are. You know, it would be different if we were mean-spirited people and we were saying that. You know, we're just racist, but take us for who we are. Not the case. You know, we're good people at our core. And so who we are displays, and that's a great story. Thank you for sharing that, Diana, because that's probably where we're going to get our best perspective on what our story is from the people who first come to our community. And, you know, now that I think about it, those are the people who we ideally should outreach to and say, what were your first impressions of Yuba City? And what, now that you've lived here a year, what do you think about Yuba City? And seeing if we've had that impact. Have we effectively told our story? Or are they saying, well, I don't know, I just kind of drive in, I drive out. It depends. Prableen, you had something.
Yeah, I was going to say community awareness, because I don't, as far as telling our story, I don't think those who have daily transactions with us are aware of what we have to offer sometimes.
Okay.
Like, I think social media is a great way to put that out there as far as like our rec programs, what we have for the kids, or you know what's going on within the city. Awareness is what I have.
So we got it here, but we need to tell our story so that they understand what we have. Yeah. Manu.
We need to tell our story so that we're approachable. A lot of times the public is, that they know what problems are out there in the city, and they're the best people to tell us, but if they don't feel comfortable approaching us, then we won't hear about it.
So it makes us approachable. And people who are willing to admit that they're wrong and display vulnerability and show that they're human are more approachable. I'll just say that, right? Than someone who's like, hey, we don't do anything wrong here. You know, it must be wrong with you on your end. You know, we bill accurately. All of our rec services are awesome. I don't know what you're talking about. Never heard that before. First time. So. Angela.
We're very,
Nina.
we're very diverse.
I get you two mixed up. I apologize.
That's okay, and we're very accepting of all that diversity.
Yeah.
It's a very.
So accepting of diversity. That is more of a quality. Anyone who grew up in an area that isn't diverse appreciates that immensely here. I grew up, I'll just tell you, I grew up in a community where it was mainly looked like me. And so I take a great deal, I guess I don't even acknowledge it. It just is what it is. We just live in a wonderfully diverse community. And people will say, well, aren't there like ghettos and concentrations if this is where the Hispanic people live and this is where the Indians live? And I'll say, well, yeah, you could say maybe, but there's still a lot of just diversity in where people are. And in terms of who people associate with, it's just like free and open. As I've witnessed two children go through high school, that, I joked with my son who played basketball that he was one of the, sorry, what do you call them? The team, I forget, whatever it is. So, he was the token, you're right. That was actually the punchline. They're not the team leaders, they're the whatever. I'm sorry, but on basketball, is McIntyre in here? What's that? No. Captains, so the team captains, thank you. You guys know how much sports I played. I ran, all right? Cross country, track, you just run. So he was one of the team captains. And I joked with him, I said, well, you know why they made you team captain? And he said, what? I said, they had to make you team captain because you're the only white kid on the team and they didn't want to show bias against you. And he's looking at me funny, and he didn't even think about that. And it's good that he didn't think about that. And it's good that I was joking with him, right? Because these are just his friends. These aren't people who are any color or race, ethnicity. He just sees them as friends. And so this accepting of diversity is just really something I think sometimes we take for granted, and it's not perfect. And I understand that. So as much as I just framed an environment for you that sounds perfect, I know it's not. I know as a community we still have a long way to go in accepting a diversity. So that's I don't want you to say that I've just taken that lighthearted, but it is part of growth. Is that acknowledgement? Yeah.
And I think in a bigger picture from that is it's not only, like we said, take us as we are, but it's taking our community as they are. That it's not about making our community change. It's about accepting who they are as well. And that we're willing to, it's not like we want you to change. We're now, the big city. You're our people. And we'll take you as you are. We want to work with you and not make you something.
So diversity, not necessarily just race, ethnicity, but socioeconomic status, anything along that. That we're all just different people and we accept you. That's I like that. That's great. George, you had your hand up.
Yes, so why is it important to tell our story? Because it's good branding. Back to making people feel, building on the way people feel. That's good branding. I mean, we can all remember, the tunes from Coca-Cola or whatever that we understand that branding that they use to make people feel a certain way. And we tell our story to build on that, make people feel a certain way. Your neighbor, very good to get out and knock on the doors of other neighbors because it made them feel a certain way.
Yeah.
Good branding for that neighbor.
Yeah. No, and I don't know if it's just generational, but each of you can probably think of a product that had, because, Coca-Cola, somewhere along the way, did some sort of imprint on many of us. The Coke adds life. I'd like to make the world. There was a song they'd sing over the Christmas time holidays, and I don't drink Coke, but I really think that their branding was magical. What's that?
They're polar bears.
The polar bears, yeah. So that makes it's an emotional connection I have, obviously, because it's not a transactional, because I don't buy Coke. So, so obviously they made that impression on me. So let us move, unless someone's going to tell me not to. Kathy has something. Kathy. Thanks, Samantha.
I think that you're sticking together. I think that by telling our story, we're also reinforcing it within ourselves.
Thank you for that. Reinforcing within ourselves. So that's kind of along the goal setting lines when we talk about how to set a goal. You set a goal and then you tell someone else what your goal is, because it'll actually make you more likely to achieve it, because you have a higher level of accountability, because Matt knows what my goal is. And he's going to say to me a week from now, hey, Steve, how's things going with that goal? You know, I'm going to be like, I need to provide an answer to him. I know he's probably going to ask me, versus me just setting the goal and then a week later saying, oh, you know, I got busy. It was a really, and then you do that self-talk. It was just a really busy week. It just, and then you all of a sudden you make it right for yourself of why you didn't do it. So I think reinforcing within ourselves is really good. So let's choose a different color. Let's go purple. How can we do a better job at telling our story? Continuous improvement. We're doing a good job. We've heard some stories about things we're doing, and I know we're doing a good job. But how can we do a better job at telling our story?
Getting out there in the community, just getting out there and, you know, just at events around the community.
Okay.
And we're out there to tell our story.
Oh, that's purple. That's not going to show well.
Yeah, being visible.
Okay, getting out in the community. We're going to just stick with black. Getting out in community.
About being visible, like with public works, a lot of stuff people take for granted or don't necessarily know that that's a thing. We're all around you, but sometimes it's making sure, hey, we're there. I don't want people to know that.
You know, I think one of the ways, and you've probably experienced as well, all of you, who not a lot of them in the audience today, but well, you guys have your brand on you. But when I was at a restaurant last week wearing my Yuba City shirt, my pink October shirt, and the waitress said, "Hey, you work for the city of Yuba City?" I said, "Yeah." And immediately there's this conversation I'm having with her just because I'm wearing the city of Yuba City shirt. And of course, I have to have a heightened awareness always, right, of all of our behaviors, because we're representing what I call the family name. Family name's branded on me. And actually, whether it's on me or not, I mean, you're active in the community, so people just know that you work for the city, and so that's part of that connection as you get out and are visible in the community. If I was drunk and belligerent, that would have a certain image that would create for the community. Some personal experiences over there? No, I'm sorry. I saw some chuckling and jabbing. Oh, Darren, you're pointing at Darren? I'm teasing you. Joe, you had something.
Yeah, communication and honesty. Communicate, tell it like it is. Be honest about what we do and how it becomes to. And like I say, sometimes we do, sometimes we can do it. And we have to explain in a nice way that people understand it, an honest way.
So, you know, once again, that same theme of honesty, of saying, hey, I did it wrong, sorry.
No, sometimes it's just about, they ask you a question, well, why, you know, this is now so nice, well, we have to explain, we didn't have the funds before, now we do, with improvement, and then, well, when are you going to repair this part? Well, it's coming, but unfortunately, we don't have the funds right now, but it's...
We got the funds. Don't ever say we don't have the funds. Joe, you guys say, hey, I'll tell you what, we're going to fix this park for you.
And then they say, well, wait, just do it. Well, it's coming.
Yeah. Hey, you know, you guys do a remarkable job.
Make people feel, they, you know, understand, and they feel like you listen, and
yeah,
and it's sometimes say, well, you know, I do my part and communicate to my supervisor, and it goes on, and then people feel good. Next
yeah.
time they come and just talk to you real friendly.
Yeah, consistency.
Yeah.
networking.
So networking.
Steve, when we're out there, we gotta be knowledgeable. We have to be informed.
That's good. Knowledgeable and informed. So this, this is, so what are we going to do with all this? I mean, this is time to, Shannon, I'll be with you just a minute. This is like the action plan. What do we do to make sure that we're more consistent, that we're networking more, that we're more knowledgeable and informed? Because if each one of us are what I'll call a deputy for the city, meaning they don't always know where we work within the city, inclusive of myself, which is actually kind of nice when people don't know I work for the city, because I'm able to have candid conversations. And sometimes they say things that are really interesting about the city, which are good to know. And then they later on find out and they're really embarrassed. I said, no, don't be embarrassed. I said, thank you for telling me, because otherwise I wouldn't have known and we wouldn't have been able to improve that area. And so this part of this, it's good that we're all either informed or we demonstrate the ability to get information. So sometimes a neighbor will ask me a question. Actually, Megan and I were joking about this at the beginning of the meeting. Frankly, I was even put in the context of a council member asking me a question. And I say, I don't know the answer to that, but let me find out for you. My job isn't to know all the answers. My job isn't to play all the instruments. It's just to make sure that the orchestra sounds good. So if they say something about an instrument, I need to go to play who plays that instrument, all of you, respectively, and find out a little bit more about you. So we should be able to do that through our connections, that if someone asks a question about a different department, you're able to say, I don't know the answer to that, but I'll tell you what, next time I see you, I'll try and find out if I can get the answer to you for you. Rather than saying, that's not my department, that we don't do that. I'm just doing this. And so if people feel that connection, that you have more answers and that you're more knowledgeable and informed, I think it actually makes the job more fun to be informed about what else is going on in the city, rather than just coming into a silo every day and doing it. So I'm going to go over to Shannon, and then we're going to jump over to Ernie, and then Brett.
So on Saturday, we had our open house at the police department.
Yeah.
And we were able to educate the community on behind the scenes and in a more relaxed environment, especially for our officers, to be able to have that, their guard down, and it wasn't anything confrontational or anything. And it was a really good time. The community came out and they asked a lot of questions. We had all the tours and stuff, and they learned a lot about what we do.
Just to add to that, that was totally out of the comfort zone of a lot of us. And I think that's part of it. You have to push yourselves a little bit out of your comfort zone. And in this case, it was extremely successful. So yes, it's scary. We have to be a little vulnerable at times, but if we push ourselves out of the normal thinking outside of the box, the community sees that. They know when we're doing something a little different and a little bit more risky. And of course, we wanted everyone to be safe, and that was a high priority. But again, like Shannon said, people were really impressed with knowing and getting to know things that were going on and being educated.
Yeah.
It was awesome. And I would think other departments could do something similar, at least use some sort of platform.
It's just not as popular as police and fire. Trust me, I've been to the open house at the wastewater treatment plant. I liked it, along with the 11 other people who were with me, inclusive of my son. The fire department doesn't have any problem with theirs. I've been to the fire departments as well. It's overwhelming. But to that point, you're right, that we can create that. And this is interesting because I truly am impressed with the wastewater treatment operation. To me, it's just fascinating. But it's one of those things where people just obviously get a certain impression in their mind, and they're like, ooh, no, that's not where I want to be. But how do we do a better job of communicating and connecting with people so that they understand? How do we lead them in? And so maybe they leave their comfort zone and come down and appreciate it. But we do need to push ourselves out of our comfort zone. I mean, this is where growth occurs. We all know that. And that those open houses show behind the scenes so people have a deeper appreciation of what's happening. It's just not this wall that police cars magically go in and magically come out as the Willy Wonka factory does, right? It's not there. There's more going on behind there. Ernie.
Like maintaining with the times, using social media correctly. You know.
Social media. So stay up with the times. And that's important. Okay, who did I say would go after Ernie? It was Brett, and then we'll go Jamie if you still want to comment. And I'll jump back over here.
So I think that the best way for us to tell our story is really for other people to tell our story. You know, we can talk till we're blue in the face about how much we love our jobs, our community, our city, you know, what we do. But when other people are telling that story for us, it's much more authentic.
Yeah.
And that can be big. You know, one of our firefighters a couple years ago, it was him and all of his kids. They went to one of the nursing homes off duty. They made cookies and, you know, cards and all this stuff during the holiday season. And then their pictures, their family pictures, were up in that nursing home for, you know, a couple months afterwards. And the people in that nursing home were telling that story for a long time. And or it can be as small as, you know, we hand out the stickers to, you know, kids in the community, and they love it. And sometimes you get, you know, a lot of one-on-one interaction with them. Well, clearly that story is being told throughout the community because now we're asked for stickers, you know, by kids in the community. So clearly these things are getting out, or the baseball cards with the PD, open houses. When we do things that are kind of outside of what people expect, then we don't really have to tell our story. The people in the community do it for us because we're doing things that they think are just great. And so I think if we focus on that, then this piece is kind of.
I think you're spot on. And I think that is spot on. I mean, it's just the, I don't know, when I go to someone and say, hey, Brett, do you have an idea of where I should go for this service? And you say, hey, man, I can tell you, I've been going here for years. They're great. And all of a sudden, you've become the mouthpiece for that company. And so when people talk about our community, how are they talking about it? When they're talking about it in a positive way. So where did I last leave off and make promises? Jamie. And then it was, no, over here, Diana, what did you, so I'll go to Jamie, Diana, and then we'll come back to the front.
I was just going to comment on your wastewater water.
I'm sorry. You know, I need a better social awareness for that.
I did the River Valley Career Fair last week, and it was kind of amazing how many questions from the kids that I got, like, why don't we recycle water?
Do we run wells?
Where do we run on wells? Like, why does my water smell?
The kids who live in Marysville were saying that? Because you're at the wastewater treatment plant and you're dissing the water guys now, and that's not good.
Yeah, just public works in general.
Okay.
I had a lot of questions, like, where does the water come from? So
Yeah.
I don't know whether they're hearing it from their parents or other people. So I had a lot of good answers, but so recently we've done a lot of tours, and that's been number one. I have it on my whiteboard, open house.
Yeah.
Because that's something we really want to do, but really that communication, honesty, consistency. I've been really trying to post like social media stuff, so just really getting visible.
Yeah, and sometimes it's probably outreach. I mean, as much as other departments can have an open house and people just maybe automatically come, I would guess that there are certain kids who maybe have a mathematics, engineering, science leaning, who you could put things out about what you do at the wastewater treatment plant, and they would be like, wow, that sounds cool, I want to go there.
That's one thing I did do was a flyer for just public works, because people don't know what actually like public works really does.
Yeah.
But just making them aware. I mean, I wouldn't have known what, you know, wastewater or water does. Like, we make comments, people who are in the wastewater and water industry, that's not what you say, that's what I want to do when I grow up. So it's like, it's usually people kind of find a way to get in there.
Yeah.
But if you make people aware of what's out there in those positions, it makes it a little easier.
Yes.
You're educating the community.
How can we do a better job educating? So I'm running out of time. So we'll do Diana, we'll do Nina, we'll come back over to Scarlett, which is never simple. And then we'll go on to our next question.
Just real quick, so we do the, every 3 or 4 months or so, we do a tour with new employees. They get on a bus and they go to all the various places in the city. And they may not, they might be excited about going to the shelter, they might be excited about going to the police department or what have you. But they end up, it's a package deal. They end up going to all those places whether they want to or not. And then they're like, oh, this is fascinating at the wastewater plant or what have you. So you might consider doing that, offering that to the public once or twice a year. You get the big bus and you take them around, and you could do it to different ages as well. Little children.
That's kind of what the sister city does.
Yeah, the city tour. Kind of like we do for orientation. Cool idea. Yeah. Nina.
I was just going to say, if we do all these things, then we're getting the community to advocate for us. I mean, they're going to be telling our story.
Yeah.
They're going to get out there and do it all for us.
Advocating for us.
Okay, my last, I swear. It's just that remembering that it takes deliberate, concerted effort, that we have to make time, because it's 5 times harder to make a positive impression than a negative one. We do it one time and somebody's going to remember that negative, but
deliberate
and just consistent and putting in the time. Remembering it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort in doing it.
So this, so those of you who remember the quadrants, quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. Quadrant 1 is urgent and important. That's what's going to call these guys out of here when the tone rings, right? Or something goes off, and all of a sudden police or fire moves quickly. So that's that quadrant. Second quadrant, quadrant 2, is important but not urgent. Quadrant 3 is urgent but not important. Am I in the right place? And then down here is not urgent and not important, which is where a lot of people spend their time. Not at work, but outside of work. And that's okay. Sometimes you just need a detox. But what's interesting is we spend probably not enough time in quadrant 2, which is urgent. No, pardon me, not urgent, but important. So what Scarlett raises here is a good way to wrap up this one, that we have to have a deliberate, concerted effort to do all of this. Otherwise, 6 months later, we go, oh man, where's time gone? We've just been so busy around here. We really wanted to do this, but we've just been busy with other things. So how do you make it a priority? So onward we go. This is probably the most fun of all. I like this one. Because this is like the crisis one, when you don't tell your story, what's going to happen? Yeah. What happens if we don't tell our story? The theme here is someone else will. And what happens when someone else tells our story for us? Yeah. Negative stories.
Spreads quickly.
Yeah.
And then it gets embellished.
Embellished.
Assumptions are made.
Spread quickly.
Makes it harder on ourselves too, because if they don't trust us and they don't want to work with us, then it's going to be harder to make people follow municipal codes and call police when they need police.
Yeah, our jobs become more difficult.
Might show that they might get the impression you don't care. You don't really care to tell your story.
Impression we don't care. That's a good one. Who said that? All right, Renee, thanks.
Assumption, city, state, and PG&E workers are all the same.
Interesting. So we fall under the umbrella of just government workers. I don't know. Just that government worker profile.
They're
Which unfortunately, yeah, people like to say that. Oh, just government workers. Which, not us. Other places. I mean, I've got a relative, I'll just say generally, who works for another entity in the area, and he'll just tell me these stories. I'm like, oh man, it just makes me so grateful that the people around me work. I mean, really, and he's just telling me these stories about people, how they, every day, they're just figuring out how to avoid work and how they're maneuvering. Robert, which? School. I won't tell you that he works for a school district. That's funny that you said that, though. But yeah, so you don't want to fall under that government worker profile. Darren.
So people judge us on our last interaction. So it's this continuous effort.
Okay, so people just judge on the interactions, on last interaction. That's interesting. Yeah, because if there's no basis of understanding the deeper story, and it's just transactional, whatever you guys did for me is the impression I got. Versus if I go to somewhere and I have a one-off experience, I just go, well, that's inconsistent. That's not the way it usually is there. And I'm willing to forgive that one-off because I know that there's more to it. The deeper, that these, and because that happens, that there are those one-offs. So this is the not good stuff. And this is where if we get busy and don't fall into that quadrant 2 and focus on that, this is the consequence of it, unfortunately. But we're not there because you, in your interactions with the public, are getting us to that story where we want to be. So let me see. And I think I put this, anything, I know I'm running, so anything else to add to this one? Because this one could go on for a long time. Like I said, this to me is probably the most fun one. I guess it's just that dark side of most people that you want to go to the NASCAR race to see the cars crash, and that's what happens when the cars crash right there. So what can I do to tell our story? I'm willing to accept we's in this. I really am. But it's really the collective we is the source of dilution. Well, we need to do a better job of fill in the blank, right? What am I in essence saying? You guys. Not me, man. I'm already doing it. But I'm going to get pious up here, and I'm going to make this statement. Oh, Katie. Yes.
I just think we definitely need to utilize all the platforms that we have.
Okay.
I feel like there's underutilized platforms right now, whether it be social media or events or, obviously I'm biased because that's part of my job, but
yeah.
I just have found over this last year and a half that I took over this position that there's so much support out there. We just have to find ways to gather it and to make it known to the public what we're doing and why.
Yeah.
Utilizing those platforms.
Make it known what we're doing.
Yep.
Be innovative.
Say more, Dale.
That?
Say more.
Continue to show innovation through, just like touching on this stuff, using social network media platforms.
So show innovation. So it's just not a matter of being innovative. It's showing the public what we're doing. For example, I saw Public Works with the new concrete mixer, the swivel mix off to the side. We now mix our own concrete. We used to pay this much, now we pay this much. So the cost benefit's going to come back to us not only to cover the cost of the equipment, but then we're going to be money ahead. And that's the value proposition, right? It's like, whoa, my tax dollars are work in Yuba City. They're just not taking them. They're giving a return on the investment. So show innovation, very good. Megan.
I think it's important to make the choice every day, to show up with a servant's heart. You can feel a certain way, but you have to make that choice every day.
Choice, yes.
How you want your day to.
Make the choice to have a servant's heart every day. Yeah, it's the choose your attitude, which sometimes we can forget. Why are you in a bad attitude? Because. It's like, no, it's you chose that, Steve. No, if someone puts me in a bad attitude, then I'm admitting that they've got control over me. I'm human. I'm not saying this doesn't happen, okay? But you need to talk to yourself and go, okay, am I allowing that person to have control over how I'm feeling? Now, sometimes you just need to reflect on it, but you shouldn't allow it. Renee?
Take a little bit of time to build that relationship instead of just having that transaction.
Take time. So it's interesting because we all are busy, but how much time does it take? That little short moment of time to ask the question of, are your kids in our rec programs? Probably no additional time than just doing the transaction, but it forms that relationship. Yeah, I think that's a really good one, the time part of it. Brett.
I think a lot of this kind of revolves around what Darren, I believe, said before, is if public perception is based on our last interaction, then maybe what we should be asking is what we can do to make our story, right? To build our story each day. Because when we show that and we have those last positive interactions, then our story is kind of being told and played out in real time.
So I'm just going to put track it. How are we, to use the word deliberate, how are we deliberately knowing that each and every day we're building on our story? And we want to be careful not to make it too mechanical, because then it's just a checklist, right? But actually, maybe it's more reflective. At the end of the day, we're asking ourselves the question, what did I do today to build our story? And ideally, we're able to reflect back on our behaviors and say, yeah, I did some things today to help build my story, my department's story, and therefore the city's story as a whole.
Yeah, and I feel like it's I don't know, in our job, it's easier to gauge maybe, but like if I'm having fun that day, then I know that we're doing something, like it's because we're interacting better with our customers, we're interacting better with each other. You can feel it kind of throughout your day.
Yeah.
4 o'clock hits and I'm just kind of like trudging through. It's probably because I've just been checking the boxes kind of as I go. It's when you're building that story each day, you're engaged, and I think that the citizens see that.
That's embracing the pride in what he's doing.
Embracing pride.
Trusting yourself that you can tell the story right.
That's good too. Because if you have a genuine heart, you should absolutely trust yourself. Yeah. So it's been some time, we had a facilitator come through to lead one of the council's goal-setting sessions. And he met with council members in the Butte room behind my office. And he, at the end of this day, he was saying, I said, how did it go? And he says, oh, it went really well. He says, I just need to comment something. And this is actually a former city manager. And for those of you who know who Ted Gabler is, he wrote a book in the early 90s called Reinventing Government. So he's a well-known individual. We brought him in for a facilitating session. And he said, I just need to tell you that I heard so much laughter in these offices over the course of the day. And he was saying how positive that was, that clearly people are enjoying the work environment. Trust me, it's not all laughter in City Hall. But sometimes I'll actually qualify to people if I laugh and they'll look at me funny. I'll say, trust me, that's nervous laughter. Sometimes you're just like, oh my God, how could that happen? But it's if you're having fun while you're doing your job. You need to take your job seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. What else do we have for what you individually can do to tell the story?
You're dealing with the customers or somebody outside, just making sure that you're giving them your full attention. A lot of times you can easily just turn around, start ignoring them, and make conversation with the person next to you, and you're not giving them your full attention.
That's good. Once again, same amount of time we're spending with them, but we're just showing full engagement or full attention, engaged, taking the time, showing the innovation. But this is an evolution. This isn't a conclusion. This isn't us saying, well, good, now we've solved the problem. Now it's a matter of getting the material that we've gathered and putting it into action. That how do we do that? And how do we do it collectively as a city? We're now individually doing it each and every day, and it's benefiting our community. I know it is. And you all know it is too. Because you're out there in the public. You're not just here for the work day. You have kids in activities, you're out engaging with people, they're giving you feedback, and that's part of that telling of the story. So we had, I want to thank Eddie for being willing. We don't have a video together today. We had this idea in very short notice, and it will come to fruition, but it was how do we connect and build that bond with the community through all these ideas that you put together today. But it was just the notion of having the very real of whether it's Eddie, the guy who keeps our parks beautiful, whether it's Jack, who's helping coordinate making sure our streets are smooth, any one of you, so that they can understand who the people are who are making it happen on a daily basis, to create a much more of a connection to people. It's already being created because my office will get letters, not often, but we do. And so I think that every letter I get, there are at least 50 to 100 good things happening. Because for someone to take time to actually write a letter, I mean, some of these letters are long too. And one of them I remember, I think it was Greenwood Park, that we just got this letter from a neighbor saying, I just want to thank, and it called out the guys in parks for maintaining the park so well. And that is gratifying. It should be gratifying to them, but it should be gratifying to all of you because there are people out there who actually have on their list or mental list to write a note, a positive note, who just never do. And so it's out there and it happens. Just want to give some personal thanks to the group of individuals who met with me last week to help refine my ideas, because these come about and I'd like to make them timely, meaning the topics are of what's going on now. And so we were balancing between a couple of different ideas, and this is the one that evolved. And so I appreciate the time of the folks who met with me. I appreciate the city manager's office for putting up with my best thinking comes at the last minute. And so at 8 o'clock this morning for putting all this together, Terrell, thank you. She reminded me that she forgot her glasses at home. So I think you did a remarkable job with leaving your glasses at home. I couldn't get to work without my glasses on. And then thank you to all of you for participating, for being engaged, for listening, for taking the time, for giving full attention to the topic. And these are ideas that we'll put together. We'll have another conversation on Thursday with the other group. I think that if I had it, for some reason, the first group always seems, we'll see. Don't say anything, okay? Because I don't know why. Either I'm more on at the beginning of the week, or you guys are more on, and then the second one just doesn't have the oomph of the first one. So so don't say anything to anyone. I don't know. Yeah, don't say anything, because you might scare them away too. So and then we'll put this together, and we'll figure out how we collectively, as an organization, advance telling our story. So thank you, everyone.